It's Spoilerin time, the Cordkillers sibling show that takes all the hard work we do at Cordkillers figuring out how to watch things and lets us talk about the things we watched this week. We're talking about The Office UK Christmas Special Part 2. Then, actually, that's the end of the show. We're also going to talk about the first episode of Chernobyl. I know a lot of you already finished it, but we're making our way through, starting with episode 1. We'll talk about Black Mirror Season 5 and the second half of the 6-episode series, Good Omens. I'm Tom Merritt, and joining me, of course, is Brian Brushwood.
Hello! And, of course, we got to get started by checking in on our silly movie draft game.
Math.
It's happening. It's happening. There it is. Frog Pants in number 1 with Endgame having all the monies. $860 million. Night Attack has no chance of coming up from behind. Same with...
All your movies are out now, right?
Yep.
Secret Life of Pets 2 was your last one. It's at $92 million. It'll make some more, but not enough to get you to $860.
Oh, no. No, goodness, no. Yep. Sword and Laser, you have just The Lion King. So
the Lion King just needs to make $400 million and we'll be fine.
I mean, or maybe even just, air quotes, just $350 million, which would be...
yeah, we might still get some Aladdin money in. Dark Phoenix even made another $7 million last week, but I'm not expecting...
Oh, man, when you're counting that $7 million from Dark Phoenix, you know you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's... if and when we lose... It will be Dark Phoenix's fault. John Wick at $148 million is exactly what I needed. Aladdin at $264 million is actually a little above what I expected and certainly what we needed. Dark Phoenix at $52 million, that sinks us right there.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out this weekend whether or not John Trekker crushes everything with Toy Story 4.
I'm hearing it's the best.
Really?
I'm hearing it's the best.
Really?
What?
He says he's hearing it's like the best of all of them.
Oh, yeah. Eileen saw the preview the same night as the Stanley Cup final. I didn't get to go. And she said it's amazing. It's her favorite of the 4, she thinks.
Wow.
Yeah.
John Trekker might win this.
Well, when you look at what I need to do and what he needs to do, it's about the same thing. It's just I need it from Lion King and he needs it from Toy Story 4 and It Chapter 2.
Correct.
So if Toy Story 4... Yeah, let's say Lion King and Toy Story 4 just both blow the trend away this summer and make all the money. They'll probably end up equal. And then he gets whatever It Chapter 2 makes to push him over the top.
Which, by the way, that cast on It Chapter 2 looks pretty dynamite. It's going to be... I think John Trekker has this. Whatever. Yeah. It
was nice to pretend.
It was a good feeling.
Yeah, so Toy Story 4 coming out this weekend. Also, Child's Play for Team Hammerson coming out this weekend. So those are your options in the theaters. As far as draft movies go, let's move on to Good Omens. You finally finished it up. What'd you think, Brian?
Loved it. Don't understand people who don't love it. People who don't love it, they're all like, it's too precious. It's too on the nose. It's meant to be that. It's Good Omens. I loved it. I thought it was great. I enjoyed the whole thing. Of course, you know, the electricity between David Tennant and I forget the other guy's name is just amazing. I thought it was great. The execution on the kid just irrationally turning evil, not great.
Well, but he's the Antichrist.
Well, yes.
So does that to be a rational reason? I'm just explaining. This is where my head went. It's like, oh, of course, this is his internal reality taking over.
Sure. And I do agree with Justin Robert Young's analysis that it was a bit more time spent with that than I think it merited. You know, like, it's fine. Go ahead and show us the inevitability that at the age of 11, he's going to, you know, set the wheels of destruction in motion and become irrational, basically hit like intergalactic puberty for 20 minutes and then suddenly it's all over with. But do we really need to dedicate a full third of 2 episodes to watching that happen?
It's kind of weird because they make it seem like him being placed in a different family would make him, I guess, be raised to be good, and you see him seem to be good, or at least he believes that good things happen around him, but you don't quite get that catalyst of his turn other than it being his birthday or I don't know.
I think there are parts that were ineffable and parts that weren't. And one of the ineffable parts was that he's the Antichrist and he would set the end of the world in motion.
Sure.
And he did. And it was very clearly him not acting like himself. And then once that part was over, that's where you saw the upbringing and all that stuff come in, the nature nurture part.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. That character is all about nature nurture. There's a nature that he's the devil's son, and so there's just certain things that are going to happen because of who he is, and that happens. And there shouldn't be any other way he is, right? If it's all nature, then that's it. Whatever good he had was not really good. It was just kind of a play acting to get him to what he wanted. But there was nurture, and that nurture was his loving family. And even though he has this drive to be the Antichrist, in the end, the fact that he had solid friendships and a supportive family ended up saving the world.
Yeah, specifically, massive tip of the hat. A good magic trick is where you lay everything out in front of someone and then reveal the truth that was there the whole time. And they did that. They surprised me at the end. That moment where, each of our main characters are about to be punished in their respective celestial, otherworldly place, and yet they both survive. I was thinking like, okay, it's going to be some kind of, Crowley, found redemption in heaven and
right. He became good enough to resist the evil and vice versa.
Yeah. But instead, I think it's a much more satisfying end that they just wore each other's faces for a day. That was pretty fun. I like that.
Oh, and we were talking about this earlier, and I think that's the moment you were referring to. But the thing that I liked about the ending was the kid and just like talking his way out of being Satan's son. He's like, "You're not my father.
You're not my real dad,"
and it became reality.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very clever. I thought that was a really clever kind of like anti-joke of an ending. But I like that resolution.
Yeah, no,
because it seems like the only thing you could do.
Paradoxes aside, that is a very tidy way to make it happen.
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, he said it, didn't he?" Well, then I guess that has to be how it is.
Yeah.
Bumpity bump. You get the family you choose. Yeah.
Season 2? You guys want a season 2?
They
set up a season 2.
I don't. I can't imagine.
What?
Although I would watch. I wouldn't want to see a Good Omens season 2. I would love it, much like a Nancy Boys or whatever. I would love to see just some kind of the two of them going off and having some adventure somewhere.
Sure.
Even on like an
tempting.
alien planet or something. I'd be in on all that.
It's tempting. I totally get the temptation. My problem is that Terry Pratchett is no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
And this story is a magical melding of Neil Gaiman's darkness and Terry Pratchett's hilarious, cynical optimism. And without that interplay creating the story underneath, it just is going to become a Neil Gaiman story, which is a really good thing. Don't get me wrong, but it's not Good Omens anymore. And at that point, I'm just like, just go make something new.
Yeah, I can back that up. But then again, we were excited to hear about a season 2 of Russian Doll.
Well, I never saw Russian Doll season 1, but I'll take it.
Wait, what?
You've got to watch Russian Doll season 1. It's great. It's great.
I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Apparently, Neil Gaiman has said that he and Pratchett did plotting for a sequel
Had
book.
some notes. Oh, I did not know this. All right.
Does that alter things for you?
It helps. That's still notes or notes. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between notes and like, oh, we brainstormed a lot and all that was left to do was to write it. Then, okay, maybe.
Right.
But it's, notes of like, oh, we sat over tea one day and like jotted down a few ideas. I don't know. Hard to say.
Turns out the second season is something Russians. They're Russian now. Yeah, it's Russian Omens.
It's actually crossover with Russian Doll.
Yeah.
Russian Omens. Do you think? I thought what was really sort of refreshing is that at its most abstracted, Good Omens is an anti-war tale, right? It feels kind of like Philip K. Dickish in that sense, in that it's like anti-war whole heart, right? And I wonder if you can do that again in a second season of if you can just keep that same subtext or if you need to expand and extrude that.
Well, this is why I would love to see them do something totally different. This is why I would love to see just our two main characters, assembling an IKEA shelf or something like something not with those stakes, not in that world, not in that thing. I just want to see. I want to see what they would do with something very small. Maybe, like, for example, maybe they get handed a kid that has to win a talent show. Why? They don't get to know why. It's going to set a sequence of events, 1,000 years in the future that it's going to matter. And so that's their job. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm all in on all of that. Like, they're just so good.
The true test of any relationship is assembling IKEA furniture. So I'm in. All right, let's talk about Black Mirror season 5, Brian.
Watched all 3. I didn't think I was going to get all 3 of them done.
Which order?
Miley Cyrus, then the
Striking
Vipers, and then Smithereens. Yes.
Okay. Same order I went in.
Is that? Oh, that's the order you saw them. I guess we'll start with the Miley Cyrus one. I wish somebody had warned me that it goes full on madcap at the 45-minute mark. It turns into like Cannonball Run. And if I had known that going in, I don't think I would have minded the mushy middle 10 minutes leading up to that insanity. But instead, what we had was a serious, stuff I was taking seriously. Then 10 minutes of mushy, like, why is everybody no longer sticking to their characters and they're being silly, and I don't get it. And then we hit madcap and I'm like, oh, it's silly. Got it. And then I loved it from that point forward.
Yeah, I needed that change to happen faster myself. Like my criticism of this and spoiler, the next episode of Striking Vipers is that they just took too long in the middle. Like the beginnings are strong, the concepts are interesting, and the ends aren't bad. But I was checking my watch a lot. Because I'm like, okay, personality in the doll. Got it. All right. And we're waiting, and she's in the hospital, and we're waiting. And then like you say, like, oh, then the wheels start turning, and everybody's running, and we're trying to save her. And the doll is like, no, but I'm the real me. And it's great. It was 35 minutes of content in more than an hour.
I agree. Although it was fun to see Miley Cyrus so clearly enjoying the potty mouth robot opportunity, right? Like she clearly was having a blast doing the voice acting of the robot.
Like the unholy child of a Nabaz tag and an Amazon Echo. It was so good.
Yeah, I enjoyed all of that. Man, a lot of undeveloped real estate that they spent too much time with. I guess they felt the need to convince us that a humane rodent removal dad would have brain scanning technology just, all at the ready for that plot device.
That should have been our first clue that it was silly, right? Like,
then do something silly early on to break that tension early on. Don't give me 30 minutes of take this seriously and then they should have stretched that credibility, right?
They should have just started at him giving the daughters that demonstration of the tasing method.
Yes. Like okay, it's a wacky inventing dad who has a wacky machine, but and
then everything else we can pick up in media res.
Yeah,
but it was very much like new girl at school and meeting people and not meeting people and then the robot. Yeah,
do you think anybody was fooled by the head like a hole thing?
I was, because I could kind of
It was a tip of the mind thing for you?
I knew something was off about it. And you can, anytime, look, hey, no one writes music with the word verve in it. So it's very clearly like something else. And even hearing, Miley Cyrus do the rock version at the end, I needed someone else to like link it online for me to be like, oh yeah, I do know that song.
So maybe it's a generational thing, because I suspect Tom and I instantly knew what the song was and couldn't.
No, the first few like down and down. I turned to Eileen. I was like, "Is that head like a hole?" and then we're like, "Wait, but the words are different." Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I loved that part.
Apparently, Charlie Brooker wrote that
wrote
new
the words
lyrics.
to it?
He's like the reverse Weird Al. I did enjoy that. For me, it wasn't a surprise what the song was, but instead I spent 55 minutes of the hour and change thinking this is a tribute to the song. What a fun way to work it in. You know, if you're a disaffected Gen Xer, then you already know this. It's fun to and you think that's the end of the joke, as it were.
Oh, yes.
But then to come back and to have her recast that song, especially because they did clearly set up that she was being corrupted by her aunt. So for all, so to say, no, this is the song I was trying to write for my aunt, and it got corrupted into this, sugar-coated candy thing.
Yeah.
And then to just hear just a straight up Miley Cyrus rendition of Head Like a Hole, I enjoyed it immensely. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I described and played for Bonnie. She's not going to sit and watch all of Black Mirror.
Sure.
So I just explained it to her. I played this, and then I just took her to the end credit scene and watched that, and that was a delightful transformation. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
I will say, I don't know what it says about the story, but I love the idea that her sister is like, oh, I only like good rock and roll music, but also this is either a world where that Nine Inch Nails song doesn't exist,
Right.
or
But
she
the,
didn't
but the
recognize
sugar
this very-
cubes do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Striking Vipers. What'd you think of that?
It was fine. I liked it. I feel like it was a bit of a Rorschach test because it certainly was presented as if, what does it mean to be in a married, committed relationship, having a family, and suspect that you might be gay and feel trapped, and what does that look like? But it seemed like they kind of blurred the edges, so it could be, what is the intimacy killing effect of pornography? In this case, it's an actual real time, other person. But it seems like they engaged in a lot of the trappings that you see with couples having difficulty. And to me, the most interesting part is not shown. The part. They wallow in the
full
shame.
penetration?
No. They well, okay. Two interesting parts are not shown. No. They wallow in the guilt and the silence and the cover up and the lies and the detachment. And I understand it's a Black Mirror episode, but then they sort of end with this. Anyway, they talked. It's all worked out, and now I guess once a year he gets to do it with his bro.
See, I was seeing that as once a month.
Whatever
But,
it is,
okay, yeah.
and she gets to go, and allow herself to get hit on, and then
Everyone gets a hall pass.
like, to me, the most interesting part is that discussion. I would watch an hour of them. I would watch a whole nother episode of them breaking down, like, all right, let's lay it all on the table. This is where I'm at. This is why I'm all pent up. These are the secrets I've been keeping from you. How do we work together as a couple to make this work? That was the only bummer on that episode for me.
I thought this one took too long in the middle as well. I think this wasn't, an hour's worth of content, but I agree with everything you guys both said. I think that they were doing a lot of showing, don't telling when they didn't show us that conversation. I think they expected us to just like, you guys get it. You know what that conversation was like. And just assume that it turned out well instead of making us show you. But there are two things I would add to what we've said so far. One is, I like that you can see what was happening in the game as a realization that labels don't matter. I'm not gay. I'm not straight. I'm not bi. I'm nothing. I'm not any of those things. And that is a conversation that's had a lot in queer circles, non-binary, et cetera. And I like that, it may not have touched on it as much as it could have, but it got into that territory of, this isn't about that. It isn't about the label. This is about a feeling and a connection between these two people that have a real emotional connection, and they can make that connection in this game, as well as what you were saying, Brian, about, the intimacy killing effects of porn and marriages having trouble and them coming to that arrangement of like, okay, to keep things strong, we'll have an escape valve built in, and yours will be this and mine will be that.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a testament to just how strong the acting and the writing on this episode was, that I would want to hear an hour of them coming to that agreement because they're real characters. Because I believe I believe all three pieces of the triangle strong enough that I wanted to, like if they were all, less three-dimensional, then I don't think I would really care, and it'd be fine to wrap it up the way they did. But instead, like, they made them real people to me, so I wanted to experience the real pain and confusion and the real working out of what that would look like.
Yeah, I feel like they should have followed the friend. I feel like the friend had more. You could have gotten pretty much the same bit of their relationship, and probably even got
made him the main character.
And even still got the marriage relationship elements, but also we would have explored his moments of loss.
Oh, so you're saying all the stuff they didn't show where,
I think you could have told the main character's same story, but from the perspective of the other character, and also gotten the friend's life bits as well, instead of kind of the exposition dump at the dinner where it's like, oh, I couldn't replace you, like that
I would have dug 15
nice.
20 minutes of him trying to be like, well, I mean, clearly there's something happening. I bet I can find someone else, and then just nope, not this, not that, I
don't know.
I do feel like our protagonist was the right choice, because that trappedness, he had the most structure around him, preventing him from being able to explore this
sure
in a way that his friend wasn't.
All right, Smithereens, which, if I remember correctly, did not feature any music from the Smithereens. It was certainly the most thrilling of the three, in that it was a thriller. It was the one that I never felt dragged, but just based on our conversations, I'm realizing probably not as deep as the other two either.
I'm so glad you said that, because what I was thinking is, it is very hollow. It is an empty box. However, I was electrified, and I'm surprised, Bryce, that you thought it would be my least favorite of the three.
Yeah.
Because I, unlike the other two, the other two, maybe a little bit of web surfing here or there, or poking around.
Sure.
But this one, I was just riveted, and it was almost purely on the quality of the acting, because it's an empty box. It's an empty box, and it is the performances that deliver. And and Topher Grace, I thought was,
he was a good button on that.
I was expecting him to be a disappointment, not because I don't trust his acting or whatever, but just because they built up the legend of the guy, and instead he's very much the cartoon of the Silicon Valley, dude bro that you would expect. And yet I believed him when he cared, and I believed, and the tragedy of that ending and everything. I mean, it was such a very simple story, and part of me kind of loved that it was a kind of a straight up hour-long PSA about texting and driving in a world where it is flatly true that texting and driving is more dangerous than drinking and driving.
Sure.
And yet nobody wants to believe it. They don't want to accept it. They don't want to accept that
everyone assumes that they're the exception, right? Everyone wants to say like, yeah, but I know what I'm doing. I'm paying attention. It may be like that for everybody else, but I can do it safely.
Well, and specifically, there's a special level of judgment people save for people who drink and drive. And they don't apply that to themselves or even their loved ones when it comes to texting and driving.
And I think the very soft target that it paints is a very prescient one of app companies or phone developers. I mean, I got a thing on my phone today that was from Amazon that was like, hey, look what I found for you. And it's like, you're Amazon. You list all this stuff. You needed to bug me about this? And so, yeah, I think... I kind of thought, because the message is pretty simple and plain, that would be at the end of it what we get. Because I think the action and the suspense and the thriller elements of it are really good.
Yeah.
It just kind of doesn't I mean, it's literally not science fiction.
And I totally bought the Stockholm
fiction.
syndrome moment, where it's like I was on his side. I had Stockholm syndrome. I'm like, yes, please stop him from committing suicide. Yes, risk your life to save his.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
All right, let's move along. We got 2 more shows to still talk about, starting with the first of several from Chernobyl. And this is, for me, not a fun watch, but it does seem to be a quality watch as far as the performances and the shooting. From everything I've read, it's mostly true with a couple of embellishments and exaggerations throughout. So I'm just going to set that part of my brain aside while I watch it. And just see how they tell me this story. And in this first episode, it really does feel like prologue. This is the very famous, they thought it was just the roof on fire, and we see why. And the way they tell the story is it's because one guy just was in denial and wanted and didn't want to believe that something could be as bad as what they were talking about. And that even extends to the party. And we get that great moment where the very old guard Soviet guy tells them that, this is what the communist dream is about, and fires them all up at a time when we know they're very close to that dream ending. But I think that's why they wanted him to. I mean, that actor is not even as old as they made him look. They wanted to make him look like he was there in 1917. He knows what he's talking about. So it does feel very much like, okay, they're trying to show me what it was like on the ground in the Soviet Union, why people might not want to admit what was real, and why people wouldn't want to object and put their foot down and say, no, this is absolutely real, which leads to this horrible tragedy getting worse.
Yeah, I loved the opening scene of this so much. I loved the rich Cold War aesthetic. The same thing that I think we dug about Counterpart is very much present here. In a perfect world, I would not know that this had a 10 out of 10 rating on IMDb going into it, but we don't live in that world. We live in the world where this thing has been overhyped to hell. And as a result, I was pleased generally, but not overwhelmed by the first episode. And I hope it gets better and more involved and is not just a series of, and then this person did a heroic thing and died. And then this other person did a heroic thing and died.
Well, but there's also and this person did a thing because he was ordered to and died. Right? Like there's the firefighter side of it, but there's also the guy that they make go up on the roof and he's like, that's a death sentence. They're like, no, it's not.
Right.
And so it's like, there's nothing even heroic about that. That's just blind incompetence.
And I think that is part of the nature of the story is that very few people seem to have understood just how bad the situation was at the time. And so as a result, what I was expecting going into it is that deep sinking pit in your stomach, like, oh, dear God, this is awful. And I didn't get that, which is a weird thing to crave from a television show. But I have faith that I'll eventually feel horrible.
Well, because I think I know what you're talking about, because it's going to get worse. You know that, right? So you're like, well, we haven't seen that many people throw up and die yet. It's going to be a lot more. So yeah, this is an interesting example of using the spoiler within the story to set your expectations, right? They could have told the story with the character that comes in at the very beginning and the very end, not showing him in the future committing suicide, but leading up to that and saying, here's a guy who's going to, object and try to get the right things. And in the end, despair and, twist, he kills himself. But instead they put that on the table right at the beginning. And like, where this character's going, because of history, where this disaster is going. Let's tell you the story and you will still enjoy the story along the way. I'm interesting to see that gamble pay off.
Yeah. So what do you think about the, we'll keep this short, but like, what do you think of the ethical complications of a piece of art that for the most part gets the science right and so graphically depicts the horrors of Chernobyl that it has the potential to shape policy and as a result, ironically, keep the planet from embracing greener technologies as a result. I find a strange, a friend of mine, Andrew Bain, keeps sending me articles on what parts are right and what parts are wrong. And I don't want to speak for him, but it feels to me like he's a bit concerned that he's like, well, congratulations, this is a great piece of art that will keep nuclear technologies from being used, which is really unfortunate because we need them.
It's certainly not going to paint a picture that makes everyone suddenly realize, nuclear energy isn't as bad, right? But it's also a real thing that happened. And I don't think we should put shackles on art and say, only tell the stories that will promote a good ending for the world. We should have that conversation. And honestly, the way you convince people if you want to convince people that nuclear power is more good than bad, you need to overcome their objections to Chernobyl, because they're going to have those anyway. They're going to have those because of Fukushima. And if you can do that, then, you definitely will make your case.
Sure. And to the credit of the showrunners, like they're very out in front by saying like, hey man, let us remind you, this is a story of cover-ups and deceptions and lies and short-term benefits to oneself, having long-term consequences for other people.
I was thinking about this while I was watching it. Airplanes are also in the same category to me as nuclear power, which is, we know that the end result, either a nuclear accident or an airplane crash, is way worse than it would be, say, if a coal plant blew up or if a car crash happens, right? And all the statistics don't matter. It's the dangerous end that we're worried about. With airplanes, it's very clear that, but I'm willing to risk it because, boy, is it amazing to get to Europe so fast.
Right.
So instead of saying don't fly planes, I'm going to be very insistent as a species that planes need to be way safer than anything else. Cars should be much safer, but I'm going to insist that planes should be safer, and planes should have security theater so people don't get on them and do bad things, because I really want that benefit with that bad end. Nuclear power doesn't have that clear, like, but I want to get to Europe really fast, or I want to get to Japan really fast, or I want to get to Minneapolis really fast. Part of it. That's why people are like, you know what? I still have power. And it's not that much cheaper to have nuclear power. So why should I risk that horrible ending that probably won't happen, but might?
Unfortunately, the people who would be, in theory, the most motivated to want and crave the clean energy of nuclear power are the ones who demographically tend to be the most afraid of nuclear power. Like those who have stated that they're deeply, deeply concerned about global warming and carbon emissions are the people who should want nuclear. But of course, that's not how it turns out.
If nuclear power was free, if they came in and said, well, you can have your coal plant, your oil plant, your natural gas plant for this much money, look at your power bill, or you can pay nothing and we'll do nuclear power. All of a sudden that conversation changes. Now you have the thing that compels people like, but I want to get to Europe really fast, right? But it's not.
Right.
And so you don't have anything like that. All right, let's talk about a much weightier issue. Part 2 of the UK Office Christmas special.
All right, Tom, this is the end of our Office UK journey. Can I just say, good riddance to David Brent. Good riddance to like I'm out. The joke wore thin. We get it. He's a really bad person. Maybe you could have done something with that. I have to admit, I
was feeling exactly the same way first half of this. I'm like, yeah, okay. And joke wore out for me a little earlier than for you, I think. But the last half was better because there was less David Brent. And you actually see some of the other Office characters, which I know we keep bringing up the U.S. Office, and that's probably unfair because it's an entirely different thing in a lot of ways. But what made it over its many seasons to me was that you brought in so many other characters. And I feel like the Office UK would have benefited by being a little less Brent-centric, even if he was much worse than Michael Scott, and developing some of those other characters in the Office, which in the last half of this episode, I'm like, oh, okay, but this is, I get to see him being a DJ. And like, there was a little more of that and I enjoyed it.
Not going to lie. I thought, wow, big balls, BBC. You're going to let the girl get away. And I thought that was just what they were going to do. And then they were like, psych. Anyway, they're together now.
How do you spell that?
Yes, that's sloppy storytelling. Yes, I was very happy when she showed up and they got together.
I don't know if it's sloppy storytelling. It's just an expected storytelling. And at the same time, I was happy for Tim and Dawn. So I'm like, all right, this isn't the thing that makes me jump up and go, oh my gosh, or whatever. But, it's nice. I'm happy for them.
Yeah. Yeah. What other parts of the story was there? Oh, him finding the right girl felt totally unearned. I didn't care for that with David Brent lucking out on his third match.
It would have worked for me if she had been somehow distinctive.
Yeah, if she had her quirk, and then the two of them like, oh, yeah, I couldn't stand to be around her either. And again, not to make comparisons, but the U.S. office did it. They definitely found the female version of Michael Scott.
If there had been some foil or something. What I did like, though, is that David Brent became a much more tolerable character with her around. So there's that.
Fair enough. Thank you, The Office, for giving us The Office. I'll let you decide what that means.
Are we watching the David Brent movie?
I don't want to. I am firmly in camp. David Brent was my least favorite part of this whole experience. And I understand it was groundbreaking for the time, but it's just generally unpleasant. And I can't wait for you to re-experience
Ricky
the version.
Gervais.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais in Extras. It's going to be great.
Okay, so next week we're starting Extras.
Yep.
From Netflix. Okay, and that's a complete series. They're not making any more.
Yeah, I think they only did 8 of them. I think it was only one season,
okay.
Maybe 2 seasons. I think there are 2 seasons.
So it's an interregnum in our library watch for 8 episodes of Extras.
Yeah, let me double check that.
Yeah. Anything else before we wrap up then?
No. That's I'm excited for you to see Extras. I think you're really going to dig it.
All right. I'm looking forward to trying it. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Thanks for supporting us at patreon.com/Cordkillers, and we will spoil you again next week.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.